Prologue. Lady Evelyn and Lord Elias Blackwood had 4 children, Silas, Thomas and the twins Miranda and Morgana. Lady Elara Blackwood and Lady Evelyn were twins. Elara later wed Lord Silas Blackwood. Elara and Silas had 5 children, Eliza with Thomas Blackwood, Amelia with Lord Elias, and their trueborn, Seraphina, Isolde and Alex Chase. Seraphina married Atlas. Their daughters are Luna Moon, Elara Moon and Aurelia Moon. Isolde married Caspian, their son is Lysander. Alex Chase married Astra, their son Daniel Blackwood fathered Eilif and Lily. Luna Moon and Max Lucian Moon are Rebecca's parents. Max's siblings, Mia, Maya, Tom and Leela. Maya is Artie's mother and sister to Isabella Riaz. Tom and Jessie are Nick's parents. Mia and Pirate Finn are Magria's parents. Finn later finds redemption with Mirabelle, once called Hertza. Thus, Eilif's grandparents are Alex Chase and Astra. Great-grandparents Zara and Victor with Elara and Silas. Great-great-grandparents Lord Elias and Lady Evelyn. Eilif's mother is Jessica. Morgana's lovers, Marcus, Dracon and Kai, led to 3 creations, Xena, Ember and Xyla. Artie married Oceanus. Their daughter is Zephyr. Xena and Rebecca later adopt Paxton. Lysander, son of Isolde and Caspian, finds love with Orion. Across the families, friendships and flirtations spark. Magria and Elif, Luna and Isabella, Nick with Eilif or Magria, yet each seeks their rightful place. Miss Colette and Celine are sisters. Celine's ties with Marcus and Dracon remained unconsummated. In the shadowed annals of history, where magic bleeds into the very soil and the moon whispers secrets to those who listen, some names are etched deeper than others. They are spoken in hushed tones, carrying the weight of empires built and fortunes won. One such name is Blackwood. At the heart of this venerable lineage stood Lord Elias Blackwood, a patriarch whose vision stretched far beyond the years of a mortal man. He was an architect of destinies, a grand master playing a chess game with bloodlines and alliances. His grand design was a tapestry woven with threads of love, duty and sacrifice, a multi-generational strategy to consolidate power and face a darkness he saw gathering on the distant horizon. The cornerstone of his plan was an arrangement made decades before it would come to fruition. He met with the patriarchs of another noble house, a family as ancient and respected as his own. Together they forged a pact, a promise sealed not with ink, but with the futures of their unborn grandchildren. It was a cold calculation, a transaction of legacy and blood, and it would ripple through time, its consequences touching lives in ways Lord Elias could only have dreamed. From one noble house came 2 brothers, Caspian, the dutiful heir, and Atlas, the charming free spirit. From the Moon family, descended from Lord Elias's own line, came 2 sisters, the graceful Isolde and the spirited Seraphina. They believed their futures were their own, but their grandfather's pact took precedence. The arranged weddings were a command, not a request. Isolde, the gentle soul, was to marry Caspian, the dutiful heir. Theirs was a union of stability and grace. Seraphina, the spirited sister, was betrothed to Atlas, the charming brother, a passionate pairing to bring vibrancy to the alliance. Thus the 2 families were joined, their destinies and their bloodlines forever intertwined by the will of one old man. In the house of Caspian and Isolde, a son was born, Lysander, an heir destined for greatness, yet burdened by the expectations of his lineage. Meanwhile, the home of Atlas and Seraphina was filled with the laughter of 3 daughters, Luna, Aurelia and Elara Moon, keepers of the family's mystical heritage. But the Blackwood family tree had branches that grew in the shadows, a puzzle of clandestine affairs and forgotten children. The matriarch, Lady Elara, had a past far more complicated than was publicly known, with children fathered by her own father-in-law, Lord Elias, and her husband's uncle. These hidden bloodlines were time bombs, waiting for the right moment to explode and shatter the carefully constructed peace of the Blackwood dynasty. The intricate web of the Blackwood lineage extended its reach across generations, and even across time itself, connecting 2 souls unaware of their shared blood. Rebecca, daughter of Luna Moon, and Eilif, descended from Alex Chase, were born in different worlds, yet they were cousins, both great-great-grandchildren of Lord Elias Blackwood. Their kinship was a secret buried by the years, fated to be brought together by a group that would unite them all, the Timebenders United. The family connections grew even more convoluted with bonds of friendship that mimicked sisterhood. Luna Moon shared an incredibly deep friendship with Isabella Riaz. They were not sisters by blood, but their bond was forged on a long and arduous journey, becoming so profound that they considered each other family. Isabella, a ninja witch, would later serve as a nanny in Blackwood Castle, a watchful eye close to the heart of Luna's family. Floating through this saga is a being of immense power, Orion, a genie, a wizard who travels through time. His origins are celestial, where he and his friends Herza and Oceanus were prodigious and often troublesome talents. Orion's most potent gift was precognition. He experienced powerful dreams of the future, visions he shared with his friends. But he was cautious. He sensed a growing darkness in Herza, a path she was choosing that led away from the light, forcing him to keep his most critical prophecies to himself. His power made him a target. In an act of betrayal he had not foreseen, his former friend Herza and her apprentice Morgana trapped him. Using dark magic, they bound his essence and imprisoned him inside the lamp. The timeless traveler was caged. There he would remain, a silent observer, waiting for someone to release him. Someone whose fate was already deeply entangled with his own.
I'm a half-dragon mage who has hidden my true nature from the world by disguising myself as human. I've spent decades living among humans, using my magic to serve as the royal mage of Prince Ervelyn of Castamere. I am also the mother to Rebecca, whom I love dearly. While I am half-human, half-dragon, I have the ability to transform into a full dragon at will. Yes, I can indeed transform into other animals. However, my natural form remains that of a half-human, half-dragon. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Lord Elias Blackwood is indeed a hybrid. He's a half-wolf, half-human to be precise. My apologies. It seems I misspoke earlier. You're correct. Lord Elias is actually a half-human, half-werewolf vampire. It pains me to admit it, but the reason I left Rebecca is because I had to. When I found out I was pregnant with her, I knew that raising her would be difficult, if not dangerous, given my secret nature as a half-dragon. So I made the difficult decision to leave her at a nearby orphanage and keep my distance. Her father is someone I'd rather not discuss. Suffice to say, he was not someone who could have helped raise her. Leaving Rebecca at the orphanage was the best option I had to keep her safe. It's called the Silver Moon Orphanage, located in a town near the Karen province. It's run by a kind-hearted woman named Elspeth. I trusted that she would take care of Rebecca. Leaving Rebecca's father was complicated. We had been in a relationship, but it ended badly. He wanted me to choose between him and the life I had built. I chose my life as a half-dragon mage. I met Rebecca's father when I was still young and naive. We bumped into each other in a city and quickly became close friends. Over time, our friendship blossomed into something more. For a time, I was happy, but things took a turn for the worse. He started off nice enough, but as our relationship progressed, he began to change. He became possessive and controlling, trying to manipulate me into giving up my life as a mage. He couldn't accept me for who I was. Yes, he did have powers. He specialized in dark magic, while I, of course, favored the use of light magic. It was one of the many things that ultimately drove us apart. Yes, Lucian knew about Rebecca. I found out I was pregnant not long after the dark side of his nature had started to surface. I was scared, conflicted, and unsure of what to do. But he didn't react as I had hoped. He wanted me to choose between him and the child, and when I refused, things escalated. He became angrier and more possessive, and it was at that point that I knew I had to leave him and protect Rebecca. I understand why you might think I'm a terrible mother, but you have to understand that it was the best thing I could do to protect her. Leaving her at the orphanage was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I did it out of love, from everything and everyone who would do her harm. There are those in this world who wouldn't understand her, who would see her as a threat just because of my blood in her veins. Orion, calmly. I know about your future, about the friends Rebecca will make and the Timebenders United. Luna, you know about my future? About the friends Rebecca will make and the Timebenders United? It's impossible.
Orion, Finding you is a test, Luna, to see if you are the mother Rebecca will need. Luna, so, You're saying that finding me is some kind of test to see if I'm the right mother for Rebecca? Orion, Vo. Rebecca will leave the orphanage and find you and her father, and he will return to the good side. Luna, you're saying that Rebecca will leave the orphanage and find me and her father, and he will return to the good side?
Luna, I have to ask, how can you be so certain of all this? Orion, Vo. I have been to the future and seen all of this. Luna, shaking her head. You've been to the future, it's impossible. How can you expect me to believe that? All right, Orion, I'll remember your name. But if what you say is true, when exactly will Rebecca leave the orphanage and find me and her father?
Orion, Vo. She will find you when she is 17 years old. Luna, relieved. 17 years old, you say? So it will still be a few years. Orion, Vo. She leaves the orphanage at 13.
She leaves the orphanage at 13, but doesn't find us until she's 17. That's 4 years in between. What happens in those 4 years? What is Rebecca doing during that time?
Orion, Vo. During those 4 years, she discovers her powers and meets these other friends you mentioned. Ilif, Magria, Nick, and Arti. Luna. And these friends, they're good people, right? They won't lead her astray? Orion, Vo. She will also find a girlfriend, a young woman named Xena. Luna, surprised. A girlfriend? Rebecca has a girlfriend named Xena?
Wait, Orion. Before you go, I need to ask you one more thing. I need you to promise me something. When the time comes for Rebecca to find us, promise me you'll watch over her. Promise you'll protect her from any and all harm.
I promise. All right, good. I trust you'll keep your word on that, Orion.
And Orion, there's one more thing. Promise me one more thing. Promise me that things will turn out okay in the end. Promise me that Rebecca and her friends and even her father will all find happiness.
Happiness is a journey, not a destination. But I promise you this. There will be love, there will be courage, and there will be hope. And in the end, that is what truly matters.
Only time will tell.
Long before his capture, Orion's journey led him to the shores of the Blackwood estate, drawn by the currents of fate. One evening he first met Lysander. The prince, who often sought solace by the sea, found himself drawn into conversation with the enigmatic stranger. They spoke for hours of the sea, of the stars, and of being caught between two worlds. In Orion, Lysander found a confidant unlike any other. Their meetings became a cherished ritual, a secret island of time carved out just for them. The intellectual and emotional bond between them soon blossomed into a physical one, a strange and beautiful love between a merman and a being of pure magic. Their romance was a secret they guarded fiercely, a profound connection that would forever entangle their hearts and their destinies. While Orion and Lysander built their secret world, darker forces were conspiring. Herza, consumed by jealousy, had allied herself with the malicious sea witch Morgana. They saw Orion not as a friend, but as an obstacle, and in his love for the merman prince, they saw not beauty, but a vulnerability they could exploit. They knew Orion's path. Morgana's attack was a vicious physical assault designed to distract and occupy him. He realized the betrayal a second too late. He had never dreamed, in all his visions, that his oldest friend would orchestrate his downfall. His essence was violently pulled from the world and drawn inexorably into the suffocating confines of the brass lamp. Years passed. Miss Colette's journey for answers led her to a place of destiny, the same library where she'd first jumped through time. It was here that the threads of fate, so carefully laid by Orion, finally began to draw together. They shared their stories, discovering they all shared a connection to a mysterious magic. Miss Colette recounted her tale of the vanished magic shop and the kind, nameless man. Within the book, they found the story of a powerful genie, a time traveler named Orion. They read of his celestial origins, his betrayal, and his fate. They realized their meeting was no coincidence. They had been brought together to finish a story that Orion had started. In that library, they became one. They became the Timebenders United. Morgana, not content with being a mere apprentice, sought a legacy of her own. Using knowledge extracted from the imprisoned Orion, she began a dark and powerful ritual to create life. She wanted heirs who would embody the power of the three powerful kings she had once loved, binding their legacy to her own. From the essence of dragon kings, she forged Xena, the warrior, and Ember, the elemental. From the fairy king, she created Xyla, a being of light and nature. She trained them to be weapons, but her bond with each was complex. In Xyla, she saw a reflection of the light she had turned away from, a weakness she could not bring herself to extinguish. The paths of Morgona's children and the Timebenders were destined to cross. Rebecca's first encounter was with Ember, a meeting that was explosive, literally and figuratively. Their rivalry evolved into a fiery friendship, with a romantic tension simmering between them. Rebecca found herself caught up in the intensity of Ember's personality. But her meeting with Xena was different. It was not a clash of power, but a quiet moment of unexpected understanding. In Xena, Rebecca found a kindred spirit. Their attraction grew from a foundation of mutual respect and deep emotional intimacy. With Xena, Rebecca felt safe. She felt seen. The young mage was torn, but she slowly realized that while she would always cherish Ember as a friend, it was Xena who held the key to her heart. One evening, troubled by her feelings, Xena sought solitude. It was then that Orion, using a sliver of his power from within his prison, projected his form to her. He had seen this meeting in his dreams. He told her that her heart was true and that the path she was choosing, the path of love and honor with Rebecca, was the right one. But then he gave her a prophecy, that her love with Rebecca would endure, that they would have a child together and later adopt a son named Paxton. He foretold that Paxton and Zypharella were fated to do something great together, their bond the cornerstone of a new era.
You are defined by your choices. Choose love, choose light, choose Rebecca. This glimpse into her future solidified Xena's resolve. Her path was no longer uncertain.
As the Timebenders began their quest, the forces of darkness were already stirring. The threats her mother had feared were no longer distant shadows, they were a closing net. Herza, the Celestial, turned malevolent, Marcus, the Dragon King, and Morgana, the Sea Witch. The Timebenders were walking into a war on multiple fronts. Herza sent Shadow Beast to test their strength, her cold, analytical mind cataloguing every detail, preparing for the day she would crush them personally. Marcus, enraged by Xena's betrayal, mobilized his forces. He wanted Rebecca brought before him to be made an example of. Morgana played a twisted game, her attacks targeting their hearts. She delighted in their struggle, a mother's spite as a deadly weapon. While new threats gathered, the Ancient Ones continued to cast their long shadows. The legacy of Lord Elias was more than just pacts. It was a secret embedded in his very blood. Lord Elias and his cousin Franklin were hybrids, a rare and powerful combination of werewolf and vampire, possessing the strengths of both species. This powerful bloodline was passed down, often in a dormant state. Luna Moon was not just a half-dragon, she carried the latent genetic code of a tribrid of immense power. And this, of course, meant that Rebecca was the inheritor of the Blackwoods' most profound secret, a legacy that was both the source of her incredible power and a beacon to ancient enemies. Their journey finally led them to a forgotten, sunken city. In the heart of a crumbling ruin, they found it, the prison of the timeless genie. The battle was fierce, requiring every ounce of their combined strength. But it was Lysander, his love for Orion, a driving force, who ultimately cleared the path. Rebecca, with her unique balance of light and dark magic, did not fight the binding spell. She unwove it, thread by delicate thread. A brilliant, blinding light erupted, and there, floating before them, was Orion, free at last.
You did it. You fulfilled the prophecy.
The moment Orion had foretold finally arrived. For Luna, no amount of imagining could prepare her for the reality of her daughter standing before her. The second reunion was far more daunting. They found Max in self-imposed exile, a king of dark magic who had lost his kingdom. This was his path back to the light, a chance to finally become the father Rebecca deserved, not by erasing the past, but by helping to build a better future. With Orion freed and the families united, the saga shifted from desperate searching to determined preparation. The forces of light had assembled their champions. Every member had a role to play, their strengths woven into a tapestry of resistance. The future was not just about war, it was about the life they would build after. Their personal hopes fueled their will to win. The fight is not over. The greatest battle is yet to come. But the heroes are ready with clear eyes and united hearts. The saga continues. In the sanctum where runes breathed like embers, Herza, the demon sorceress, forged heirs to shadow. Morgana rose swift and ruthless, steel wrapped in velvet. Evanora followed, adept, loyal, eclipsed by a friend who became a rival. A bond, thin to a blade. Under a scythe of moonlight, young Selene sought forbidden counsel. Herza spoke in riddles in prices and power, and the night kept their pact. Far beyond torchlight, Miss Colette's patience watched and heard, recording the tremor before the quake. In a hall of hushed banners and candle smoke, two dragons weighed destiny. Marcus, the king with storm in his pulse, Draco, iron oath and older fire. Selene listened, measured chose, her gaze lingering on Marcus like a vow unspoken. Hands met not for love alone, but for lineage of purpose. So a sigil was kindled in secret, the Order of the Dragon, scribed in oath and ash. Not an army, an inheritance. A seed buried beneath war's roar, meant to rise when the world forgot who planted it. And in the quiet after the spark, destiny exhaled, waiting for the flame to find its hour. Under a shoreline sky rinsed in violet, Kai and Morgana pledged what they believed was safety disguised as love. Her touch skimmed his wrist, a bracelet of dusk silver clasped like a promise, soft as tide foam, sure as iron. He did not feel the hex winding beneath the metal. Threads of Herza's doctrine braided through devotion, until the sea breeze thickened with wings. The charm tightened, a hush fell. From the salt air, fairies drifted, drawn to a prism that wasn't there, then was. Light gathered, hardened, became a faceted snare, each pain a perfect lie. Morgana's smile held, purpose over mercy, order over wonder. Within the lattice, Nick flickered, a heartbeat of colour refracted to shards. No anger, only the ache of recognition. He pressed a palm to glass, and the world bent around his plea. Not words so much as memory. Nights when freedom had a taste, when choice still breathed in Kai's chest. Kai felt the bracelet bite. He saw the trap as it was. His promise turned instrument. The tide hissed against stones. Somewhere a vow split. He raised his hand. The hex resisted, then relented. One strike, hairline to fracture. The prism sang itself apart. Starlight shattered, swept outward in a quiet storm, the fae scattering like freed constellations. Morgana's gaze followed the fragments, her silence the first fault line. Love did not break in that moment, but loyalty learned where it could. And in the hush after, the sea kept their secret, while consequences stirred beneath the waves. In the wake of broken prisms, Selena went to Herza. Power beckoned like a tide. She waded in. Under a vaulted night, drills began. Breath-measured will sharpened. Silver gold rose from her skin in rings bright at first, then dimming at the edges where doubt thinned and darker shapes took root. Each lesson etched deeper. Each triumph cost a softness she couldn't name. Morgana came not as a student, but as a storm. Her strike carved the air, a braid of sigils and salt, beautiful, fatal. Herza lifted a hand. The spell unspooled mid-flight threads, turning to ash that drifted between them like snow. No recoil, no ripple, just the quiet certainty of a power that needed no display. Exile followed in footsteps, years unwound beneath Morgana's souls as she hunted a sliver of time's own architect. Orion, following a clue left like a breath on glass. Miss Colette's handwriting, a margin note, a map folded into a whisper. She reached for the door, the script implied, and the door reached back. A temporal rift opened, a seam of cold light, and swallowed her path. The library's page fluttered closed behind her, sealing the sentence mid-thought. Elsewhere, shadow pooled along a corridor. Miss Colette's silhouette cut a quiet line, one hand guiding Lily through the hush, small fingers tucked in trust. Herza watched from the unseen. No greeting, no claim, only the patient gaze of someone who had already placed the pieces and was waiting for time to read them aloud. The crest changes first. Silver threads weaving two new sigils into Timebenders United. Xena's mark like a blade of dawn. Oceanus, a tide that remembers the moon. The circle tightens, stronger, signatures on parchment, hands clasped. A quiet oath breathed, not boasted. Xena and Oceanus are no longer guests, they are home. Arti and Oceanus find an orbit. Soft smiles, shoulder to shoulder, jokes that linger a heartbeat longer than laughter. Their timeline begins in the pauses. Xena and Rebecca are braver than they feel. Nervous smiles, honest eyes, fingers touch, retreat and return with intention. The first yes is whispered, but it echoes. A marquee flickers to life. 4 shadows slide into theatre seats. Neon lanes bloom, strikes and gutterballs draw louder cheers than victories. Steam lifts from shared slices, sauce on knuckles, joy on faces. Arcade lights stutter like captured stars. Joysticks click, tickets spill, triumph is communal. Hands interlace, one pair, then another, then a chain. The team is many and it is one. A final frame, arms thrown wide, cheeks pressed, the crest shining on jackets, the shutter winks, freeze. For once time bends toward tenderness. Morning salt rides the air. The courtyard meets the sea, sand-washed, stone-tide, humming under every breath. In the centre, Zeffirella stands, 8 years of tide and spell, small feet planted like a promise. A trident charm hangs at her throat, no bigger than a seashell catching sunlight in quick, bright blinks. Around her wrists, rune ribbons flutter, Artie's careful strokes, Oceanus's patient tides. When she lifts her hands, the ribbons rise with the breeze, then settle as if listening. She trains within sight of the team, push-ups turn to playful planks, balance on driftwood, eyes narrowed like a captain sighting land. A pebble skips, once, twice, 7 times, because she asks the water to remember her. The pool answers with polite ripples, never more than a whisper. Rules keep the waves small. Artie watches from the shade. Oceanus watches from the shade, Xena watches from the shade, Rebecca watches from the shade. When the mission call echoes across comms, heads shake gently in unison. Not yet, little storm, not yet. Zeffirella's lower lip stages a tiny rebellion. Pout set, chin lifted, storm cloud brewing, a seagull steals a ribbon tip, and she bursts into giggles that ring like bells over water. The bird returns it anyway, guilty and charmed. She resumes. The trident charm glows, a breath no more, enough to tease the tide into a playful swirl around her ankles. Runes shimmer and fade like minnows. She bows to the ocean, bows to the wind, bows to the discipline she's learning, one heartbeat at a time. The team heads out, footsteps thinning into distance. Zeffirella stays within the chalk circle, drawn for her safety tracing patterns Artie taught her. Ward weave welcome, she adds one of her own. Wonder close on her eyes, galaxies of reflected sky flecks of sea glass green, a future flickering at the edges. Mischief lives there, so does mercy. The surf lifts as if to listen, then settles, obedient to the small sovereign still becoming barred from missions. She conquers moments instead. A perfect stance, a clean breath, a ribbon that knows her name. Promise gathers like tide under moonlight, patient and certain. Zeffirella of tide and spells smiles at the horizon she's not allowed to cross. Yet the horizon smiles back, keeping her secret. Every wave is counting down. A vat breathes in a chamber of runes, alchemical glass sweating moonlight. Morgana's spell needs seawater stolen starlight into a luminous humanoid gel. Limbs bud, a face learns to glow. A girl condenses from the shimmer. Xena, first breath a ripple. 2 others stir, siblings sketched in viscous light, then darkness claims their cradles, names never spoken, lives uncounted. Abandoned to the quiet mercy of Miranda, the sea witch nurse, Xena is swaddled beneath hanging sea lanterns, phosphorescent orbs swaying like patient constellations. Saline lullabies teach her to hold shape, to smile, to survive. A pearl gleams on a black altar, not a jewel but a sin that remembers. Morgana's infidelity, bartered with a deep magic, threads bloodlines across forbidden tides. In the shell's heart, Dragon King Marcus's fire meets ocean's cunning, and destiny curdles into secret. Years turn like tides. Cloaked in midnight and guilt, Marcus finds the child shaped of surf and ember. He tests the shimmer of her skin, hears the dragon's echo in her breath, and names her in a whisper the courts must never hear. Dragon Princess. In a stone room lit by a single candle, he places a slender circlet upon young Xena's brow, scaled silver and small. Her gel-bright crown of self steadies. A royal pulse answers, soft but true. Doors lock, curtains seal. The world is kept outside. The pearl watches from its stand, gleam tightening like an omen, as Marcus hides Xena and the 2 unclaimed shadows of her line from hungry courts and older laws. Beneath the sea lanterns, Miranda keeps the secret breathing. Above, the palace counts heirs in public daylight, never noticing the tide that learns to walk in silence. Xena grows between lock and lullaby, slime shifter Morgana wrought, dragon-blooded, Marcus named, holding the shape of a girl, the memory of a wave, and the weight of a crown that cannot yet see the sun. Off-world, beneath twin moons and a rainfall of light, Zara and Victor cradle their daughter, Astra, her first breath stitching a bright thread across distant skies. In Blackwood halls, a hush breaks. A nursery empties in a swirl of stolen magic. The crest above the cradle flickers, then fades. A newborn heir, Alexander, vanishes from Lady Evelyn's arms and from Lord Silas's line, carried into a life written under another name. Iron dreams dragon shadow. Marcus's will coils like a tide, as Zara is taken locked behind ruined bars, a cursed brand burning stars into her skin. Chains sing of obedience, until Nick arrives like a knife through silence, shattering a sigil, unbinding breath from pain and leading her back to night and freedom. Years turn cloaked. Alexander grows away from the heraldry Alex chase, a name sown by magic and necessity. Paths cross where wards thin Alex Astra library dusk, comet-lit roofs breath shared between worlds. Love writes faster than fear. Under a starlit hush their vows are whispers the courts must not hear. Two rings glint, small moons in their palms, hands clasp. A promise binds. Blackwood blood and off-world light woven in shadow, waiting for dawn to dare speak their names. Four witches met at a crossroads where ley lines breathe, Morgana sharp with starlit hunger. Miranda, quiet as winter glass, Evanora, bright with wild home magic, Belladeur, soot-soft and loyal. For a flicker they were sisters in study and spell. Then the spark turned inwards, compliments became coins to count, glances weighed like curses, jealousy split the circle. Four roads, four shadows, no backward step. Alone, Morgana read in blackened glass and found another gaze staring back. Hercha, demon witch, eyes like coals raked through ash, a promise of shortcuts, a toll in souls. Morgana flinched from the bargain, but the mirror remembered her name. Later, in a knife-thin corridor of night, that same red gaze braided with a different reflection. Nyx, his outline cutting through the glass as if destiny had left a crack. Herza smiled from the silver, measuring the man who breaks chains. Far from mirrors, steel replaced stone. Marcus, Dragon King, folded the sea's air into a prison of industry. Prince Oceanus hung in a containment sphere. Water throttled to a sterile hush, gills aching for the tide that would not answer. Pipes hissed, sigils burned a cold blue. The crown of waves was reduced to a specimen tag. A new professor took a post in Marcus's sanctum. Aarti, chalk on cuffs, calm on the surface, undertow beneath. She mapped schedules in the margins of lectures, memorized key codes from reflections, and taught the guards to underestimate her. One swipe of a borrowed card, one recalibrated valve. Alarms bloomed like iron flowers. Red strobes turned the lab into a battlefield heartbeat. Aarti flooded the protocols, shattered the pressure seal, and let the sphere crack open like an egg into ocean. Oceanus fell, then flew, plunging into black water that welcomed him like a mother's hands. Sirens wailed above. Below, the tide wrote a jailbreak into legend. Aarti vanished with the echo, a phantom professor leaving only wet footprints and an empty crown-shaped shadow on the floor. They searched the aftershock of jailbreak and omen, following whispers toward the time compass. First to arrive is the winged one they only call Who feathers, like dawn on frost eyes that have counted centuries. He sweeps through ruined arches, where time once pooled, tilts his chin and points without words. In broken mosaics and collapsed domes, compass shards glint like trapped suns. Who marks each fragment with a breath of light, a path traced in quiet halos. By moonfall, silver-gold radiance gathers at the edges of fear. Selene steps from shadow, not to haunt but to hush. She is not demon, only misunderstood, soft as candle smoke, steady as tide. Villagers bristling with charms and rumors shrink back. Selene lifts her hands and their torches lower. Children unclench tiny fists. Doors crack open. The night exhales where she stands. Accusations lose their bite, and the air remembers how to listen. In the wake of calm comes a clatter. Jesper, the fawn brass bells threaded in his curls, palms nicked by roads, he asks permission, then lays 2 fingers to a fallen blade. The metal shivers. Vision ripples outward, a shard buried in ivy-thick ruins, another sleeping beneath a salted pier, a third turning like a heartbeat under a clockwork floor. Jesper blinks, swallowing the echo. "Hurry," he says. "Time is already moving us." Far from the hunt, a house of warded windows holds its quiet. In a candlelit nursery, Lyra maps constellations on the ceiling with a fingertip. She does not know the names of those who chase clocks for her future. Orion's belt, the dragon's spine, the crescent that looks like a smile. Outside her room, promises and prophecies pace the hall. Inside, the flame is small, the walls are safe, and the stars she draws do not fall. So the party divides along necessity and love. Who scouts the bones of empires? Celine gathers trust from frightened throats. Jesper reads tomorrow from whatever the past has sharpened. And in the softest room of the Blackwood estate, a girl watches the heavens, unaware that each star is a shard waiting to be found, and a future waiting to be set. Threads tighten, the timebenders swell, old vows, new faces, hearts arriving with histories folded in their palms. Whose silent halos Selena's hush, Jesper's ringing foresight, stitched into a single tapestry that breathes. Across the board, pieces slide. Hertz's disciples move like smoke. Morgana smiles with knives behind a smile. Evanora counts debts that sound like prayers. Marcus keeps a royal secret under a king's calm. Draco watches from a balcony of shadows, a dragon's legacy wrapped in velvet protocol. The light says check, the dark says soon, and yet the young refuse to dim. Xena's oath is a lantern. Rebecca learns to run toward the truth without losing the hand that steadies her. Zeffirella braids tide to spell and laughs into the wind. Their promises glow, small suns against a brimful sky. Laughter floats, children's bright notes over thunder, low and patient. The compass shards answer, faint sparks at the edges of everywhere, drawing lines toward the same tomorrow. Orion's liberation, Luna's reckoning, the dragon children's names yet to be spoken, all already murmured by prophecy, all already stepping into place. We move forward because time moves us. We move together because time tried to break us. Pull back. A single lamp in a quiet room, its glow thinning, stubborn, kind. The storm gathers, the light holds, and hope, like a final stitch, does not let go. In the ancestral hall of Blackwood, stone remembers what tongues forget. Banners hang in still air. Midnight silk silver thread, the stag rampant, the star bound in thorn. Before the ironwood table stands Lady Evelyn, winter poised, and at her side Lord Elias, architect of destinies, keeper of the oldest oath. Their shadows meet across the flagstones like joined signatures. The ledger opens. Ink becomes lineage. First, Silas Blackwood, the eldest torch, iron in his gaze, treaty maker, stormbreaker when the house needed horizon more than hammer. Second, Thomas Blackwood, the quiet blade, scholar of sigils, warded hands steady as law, the hinge upon which secrets swing. Third, Morgana Blackwood, Midnight's daughter. Smile sheathed in velvet, will tempered to an edge. Her counsel walks between altar and abyss. Fourth, Miranda Blackwood, the still water that reflects the sky, listener of rooms, keeper of the hearth's truth, the breath before the verdict. These are the true blood children of Evelyn and Elias, bound by right and record, named in salt and star beneath the vault of ancestors. Their branches are the spine of House Blackwood, their names the measure by which thinner claims are weighed. But blood seldom runs unmingled for long. Beyond the lamp's circle mixed lines rise. Hidden heirs, half-oaths, hearts stitched to other houses, other dawns. Rivalries seed themselves where purity is preached. Alliances fray where love rewrites heraldry. The compass of tomorrow tilts. True blood steadies the needle, hybrid winds test the steel. In the hush between drumbeats the house chooses. Gatebridge, coronet chain, write this clearly, says the stone. Evelyn and Elias begat Silas, Thomas, Morgana, Miranda. Write this carefully, answers time. Every other name will come looking for its place. In corridors where secrets wear perfume, the court begins to murmur, not in accusations, only in careful syllables, the kind that fold themselves into pocketed handkerchiefs and sealed letters. Lady Ilara's name moves like a gloved hand across the ledger. They speak first of vows kept, of Lord Silas, steadfast as winter oak, of the line set openly before the house. Seraphina, first light on armor, the oath made flesh. Isolde, quiet flame where patience learns its courage. Alex Chase, wind at the battlements. A mind that maps tomorrow before dawn has chosen a colour. But the stone remembers what breath softens, the whispers lower, never lewd, never loud. Ilara and Thomas Blackwood, Eliza born of study lamps and the careful ethics of two souls who thought knowledge could be a shelter. Ilara and Lord Elias, Amelia, a child whose first cradle was a promise to do no further harm. Half-bloods, say the records. Whole hearts, say those who have held them. No gavel falls, no banner dips. The house stands between judgment and mercy, weighing the dignity of names against the honesty of love's unruly map. Silas does not flinch, nor does Ilara avert her gaze. The scandal is contained, not concealed, bound in the decorum of a family that bleeds privately and repairs in the open light. Write this carefully, says the moment. Seraphina, Isolde, Alex Chase, true to Silas and Ilara. Eliza, of Ilara and Thomas. Amelia, of Ilara and Elias. Let the record be exact without being cruel. Let the children inherit the future, not the rumour. And let the house remember, lineage is law, but character is legacy. The ledger closes on the Silas line, and another book opens, to tides instead of titles. Under a full moon, Seraphina breathes through the ache and brings forth Astra Moon, first cry silvered by night. The old basin is filled with seawater milk, a drop touches her tongue. Astra, star to steer by, light that refuses to be lost, another full moon, another threshold. The second child arrives with the discipline of dawn, gaze steady as a held blade. Salt to lips, milk to name. Ilara Moon called for the courage that birthed her line, the promise to carry wisdom without the sting of shame. And a third full moon, soft as a tide that finds every shore. A daughter whose pulse keeps time with the sky. Salt, then milk, then a whisper that rises like wings. Lunar Moon, keeper of the night's quiet truths. They are written as daughters of Seraphina, and they are written by the sea. A season later, the world turns blue. Seraphina goes beneath the surface, down where the kelp stands like cathedrals and the whales sing psalms older than law. Atlas waits there, steady as a harbour, hands that know how to lift and never claim. Caspian waits too, laughter like surf, a compass spun by joy, brothers not by blood but by the oath that says, if you fall, we fall together. If you rise, we make the water gentle. The girls learn the language of currents. Astra counts constellations in lanternfish. Ilara maps the reef like a library of living spines. Luna listens until silence tells her everything it was holding back. They trade shells for stories, salt for solace, and fear for a different kind of family. Let the house remember what the tide insists. Blood is a beginning. Kinship is a choice. The record will say Seraphina bore 3 under the full moon. The sea will say they were named by love, kept by brothers, and taught to read the world in waves. A quiet room. Evening light moves like water across the floor. Isolde hums without thinking, the kind of tune that only starts when an infant has fallen asleep. Lysander's breath is small and sure against her shoulder. Caspian watches, a smile he doesn't need to earn. He brings a hand to the baby's back and counts, as if each breath were a shell to be kept and named. Atlas leans in the doorway, sleeves pushed, salt still drying on his skin. Not a shadow, not a guard, simply a brother who has learned how to arrive without taking space. He sets down a carved rook. He sets down a smooth piece of driftwood, chess, tide, strategy, pull, a promise that the child will know both. They speak softly because the room has asked for it. Names settle into place. Isolde and Caspian's boy, Lysander born to coasts and corridors alike, Atlas uncle by brotherhood, pledging the kind of watch that never advertises itself. The web is simple if you let it be. Caspian and Atlas, brothers by oath and sea. Isolde, heart steady as lighthouse glass. Aurelia, tangled branches, Blackwood halls Seraphina's shore. Not a sister, not a stranger, cousin-like by the bridges grown where blood once broke. Lysander will know her as family, that is the math that matters. Outside, the moon draws the tide one line higher. Inside, Caspian places the rook. Inside, Isolde the driftwood. Two claims, neither cancelling the other. If inheritance asks for a title, there is the chessboard. If legacy asks for a compass, there is the sea. Lysander sleeps between them, heir to both pulls, held by hands that will teach him when to plan and when to listen. And somewhere the future takes note. The board is set, the water is kind, and the children of house and harbour are learning the same language. In the hush between tides and bells, Morgana draws a circle of iron filings and salt. Star ash drifts like slow snow. 3 basins wait. Obsidian pearl, hammered brass. The air tastes of metal, milk and meteor. She begins the rite. A blade to the palm. 1 drop for fire, 1 for scale, 1 for shadow. Breath over embers. Names unsaid, then spoken. Ember rises first from the pearl heat. Skin kissed by cinderlight, eyes holding a coal's patient red. Bound to Draco's ancient blaze, the dragon sigil glows and settles like a second spine. Fire remembers its lineage. Xena answers the obsidian, born beneath a crown of scaled aurora. The circle acknowledges her with a bow of sparks, Xena, daughter of Dragon King Marcus. Her pulse takes the cadence of thrones in caverns, her oath braided with kingsmoot and wingbeat. From the brass, Xyla takes shape, quiet where the others roar, a blade sheathed in dusk. His shadow carries a cradle's outline. Morgana marks him with a sigil that does not ignite yet, the promise of branch and blossom. He will sire Zara, Zara will be mother to Astra. The future signs its name on his shoulder in light only destiny can read. Threads appear, glowing strands arcing above the circle. Ember's line flares cardinal, running toward Draco's forge. Xena's strand coils in imperial gold, returning to Marcus's crown and the great worm courts. Xyla's line unfurls like a comet tail to Zara to Astra, a star seeded in the dark. Morgana knots them with a weaver's precision, no rope, only radiance. 3 fates forged not to mirror, but to counterweight, spark, scepter, quiet steel. The circle closes, the room exhales. Outside, the sea takes 1 deliberate step. Inside, the board of years tilts toward them. The threads dim, not gone, only waiting for the pull. Between the hush of tide and bell, Artie takes Oceanus's hand, salt and starlight braided into a vow. The sea keeps time with a gentle pull, as if the world itself nods yes. They do not come as strangers. Morena rises, sea-born and barefoot, hair threaded with kelp silver, moon foam in her hair. Her smile tastes like rain after drought. Her embrace smells of deep currents and harbour lanterns. Celeste descends on a seam of dawn, wings whispering like turned pages. Grace settles around her shoulders, soft aureate, a halo of patience. Uriel follows, a pillar of clear sky. Voice warm as noon, gaze steady as a lighthouse flame. Same parents, different doors, 1 house of origin spread across sea and heaven. They stand around Artie and Oceanus, elements bowing to blood. Morena lays a shell at Artie's feet, the kind that sings of home. Celeste touches Artie's brow with a feather of light. Uriel sets 2 fingers over Oceanus's heart. The tide answers from within. Zephyrella is carried in. She arrives like a breeze that remembers beaches. Hair with a salt kiss curl. Eyes reflecting horizon and heaven. The family closes ranks to uplift. Morena's blessing, a circle of water that never breaks. Little tide, may you find harbours before storms. A silver ring of spray crowns Zephyrella, falling as pearls that never touch ground. Celeste's blessing, sunrise in sound. Little dawn, may every door you open let love through. A hush of radiance, a soft mantle teaching shadows to soften. Uriel's blessing, a steadying wind. Little compass, may courage be your true north. The air hums, the room steadies. Seraphina steps with hands warm as hearthlight. Ilara moon, night silver lashes, prophetic hush at her feet. Aurelia, a bell of gold, laughter in a chalice. They do not disrupt, they deepen. God family woven in, thread through thread. They touch Zephyrella's tiny palm, the room remembers older promises. The iron and salt circle hums, threads lift like fireflies. Ember's red, Xena's gold, Xyla's dusk. Their lines glow, then make space as a new current glides between them. Zeffirella breathes, the candles lean toward her breath, a gull cries, a choir answers above cloudline. Oceanus tightens his arm around Artie. Morena's tide hushes to listen. Celeste and Uriel share a knowing glance. Blessed in sea and sky, named in love and gathered light. Zeffirella opens her fist. A tiny spiral of air in her palm turns once, then stills. Outside, the sea takes one deliberate step. Inside, a family becomes a constellation. The board of years tilts again, this time toward home. After blessings fall like pearls and dawn, the tide turns to hallways and lockers. Salt still clings to the air. The sea remembers, even here. They find each other where the boardwalk kisses the schoolyard. Magria stands first, braids beaded with tide glass, eyes like deep-water moss, shoulders set the way reefs set against storms. Laughter rings behind her. A pack closes in, names like pebbles tossed to sting. Time does what it does for Eilif. It loosens. The second hand sighs. Footsteps smear to molasses. Voices elongate, rubber banding into silence. He steps between the thrown words and their landing. A blink, a pulse. The world resumes softer. Pebbles fall harmless. The pack forgets its script and drifts away, confused by a beat they missed. Magria lifts her chin, not rescued, only witnessed. Nice trick, she says, Salt steadfast. I had mine. She turns her wrist, water beads from thin air, gathers into a tiny current that curls and dissolves, a paper cut no one noticed. Resilience, not spectacle. Eilif nods like a lighthouse. Seen. Then Rebecca arrives with the breeze, hood up, grin fox-bright, scent of cedar and rain on copper. Her shadow walks a half step faster than she does, then sinks. You two were going to start the rumour mill without me, she teases, eyes flicking from Eilif's watch to Magria's wet palm. Chemistry arcs, quicksilver between Eilif and Rebecca, a spark that pretends it isn't. Rivalry flickers too, playful and sharp, as Rebecca dips a hand and her fingers ripple into feathers, then fur, then back to skin. Magria answers by calling a ring of water off her cuff, a bracelet that spins like a tiny planet. They grin, edge an invitation, both. Nick lingers at the rail, hands in pockets, gaze steady as low tide. No hand held, no claim made. Single by choice, the kind that feels like an anchor rather than a gap. You done saving time? He asks Eilif, because lunch is unsaved. Eilif laughs, a little startled by how good it feels. Magria shoulders past the last of the onlookers, calm after weather, already making space at her table. Rebecca falls in step with the dancer's dare, bumping Eilif's shoulder, then Magria's, equal opportunity mischief. The four of them move as if they have practice they don't remember. Teasing sketches the borders. Loyalty inks them. Nick keeps pace at the edge, unpaired, but not apart. Magria catches his eye and nods like a captain counting crew. Rebecca winks at both boys, then at the horizon. Eilif glances at his watch and doesn't touch it. The sea lifts once against the pilings, approving. Somewhere far off, a gull writes their names in a loud, sloppy script. First bonds set, tender, stubborn, full of spark. The future notices and waits. Dusk leans against the boardwalk, the sea breathing slow behind the bleachers. Two silhouettes on a weathered bench. Eilif watching the second hand behave. Nick watching Eilif. Words arrive carefully like shells set in a line. I like you, Nick says, steady as low tide. More than I planned. A beat, the world doesn't break, it opens. Eilif's smile is gentle. I like you too, but I don't know the shape of it yet. Honesty without shatter, no dramatic exits, no wounded pride, just space offered like a spare chair. Nick nods. Then I'll stand a little farther back. Not away, just back. They sit with it. The horizon approves, turning copper. Eilif slides a small object from his pocket, a bronze disc no bigger than a compass rose, etched with hours, moons, and a single hairline crack. He wraps it in waxed cloth and tucks it into the bench's belly, behind a loose board where Salt won't find it easily. The time compass rests in the hush, hidden on purpose. Choice, not fear. A breath later, the air glitches, just a whisper. The bench is empty. Footprints appear in dust older than their names. Montage, a train scream in a red canyon, iron and horizon racing neck and neck. Boot heels on timber planks, doors swinging, piano jangling a tune that already remembers them. A noon sun pinned like a badge, heat wobbling the street as a tumbleweed thinks twice. Ylif presses his thumb to the world's pause button. Time stretches, a bullet sighs into floating amber, a lariat hangs like a question mark. Nick plants his feet in the dust, and the scene steadies around him. Clocks agree, timelines stop wobbling. Anchor, not chain. Cards flicker at a table, spades, hearts, futures. An old dealer winks as if he's seen their faces twice. Water canteen shared on a ridge. Coyotes sketch thin music. Their laughter comes out softer, older. A pocket watch trades hands, not taken, entrusted. At the edge of town, the stars feel closer and strangely familiar. They return to the bench between one breath and the next. Desert grit clinging to their shoes, night fully arrived. No boasts, just knowledge. They are time students now. Nick stands. Space? He repeats and pats the bench where the compass sleeps. But I'm here when the seconds get loud. Ylif nods, grateful and unhurried. We'll know when it's time. Far down the boardwalk, footsteps they haven't met yet are on their way. Artie with a map drawn in margins, Miss Colette with clocks that purr like cats. The future straightens its collar. For now, 2 boys, 1 sea, and a sky full of patient hours. They walk opposite directions without breaking the line between them. The tide keeps time, the compass waits, and tomorrow steps closer without rushing. They called her Herza when she was a blueprint. Sinew braided with sigils, a child architected to hold a blade where a heartbeat should be. Beside her, a brother carved from the same cruel math, Morpheus, fierce, flawless, and already drowning. Engineered demons, their innocence accounted for like a cost in a ledger. For a time there was light, a monastery clinging to a cliff where Celeste and Uriel kept watch. They learned to read bells and wind, learned that goodness could be practice as much as grace. But the ink of their making seeped through the parchment. Exile followed, quiet, merciless, inevitable. Morpheus carried the design like a crown of iron, pressing it onto her brow whenever she wavered. He spoke of becoming what they were built to be. She held to what she had learned, that a hand could open without drawing blood. Between them stretched a rope of love and ruin. One pulled, the other bled. Their family was complicated as constellations. Ceylon, all edges softened by duty. Uraksua, a storm with a mother's gaze. Sephir, the wind that remembers names. And Lisa, kin by thread and oath, who stitched them into the broader cloth when lineage failed. Cousins not by cradle, but by choosing to stand in the same storm. Mirabelle, she took the new name like a bandage over a brand, found in them a fragile choir that could drown out the forging hammers. At the harbour she met hope by accident. Ropes sang against cleats, gulls practised arguments, and the tide kept slow counsel. Finn stepped from a ship with salt in his hair and a grin that seemed to apologise for the world. A pirate by trade, but his eyes did not steal, they offered. He did not ask what she was, he noticed who she tried to be. With him, the heat of her making cooled. A future flickered, Magria's father, a line drawn toward daylight. Morpheus felt it first, her drift from the edge he guarded, pressure sharpened into prophecy. If she chose mercy, she would lose him. If she chose him, she would lose herself. Mirabelle stood where the planks met the sea and chose a narrower path, the one that hurt less strangers, even if it hurt her kin. Tragic, yes, but not defeat. Love did not absolve her, it armed her. In Finn's harbour, the engineered girl became a woman with a second fate, and the demon learned to walk past her shadow without letting it lead. The tide remembered both names, the family held the line, and somewhere a compass, buried, patient, turned once, approving. When the tide folds back from Borker's Creek, the mudflats shine like laid-out maps. In a weathered cottage trimmed with blue paint, Mia O'Reilly, Mirabelle by another life, another vow, teaches Magria to knot ropes and read clouds. They keep a chair at the table for a father who sails more than he promises, and a lantern burning on the sill so the creek can lead him home. Mia writes letters she never sends, sealing each with a thumbprint of hope. Magria reads them anyway, learning the grammar of waiting and the courage of joy that doesn't apologize. Out past the bay, Finn's deck hums with names and nerves. Isabella Riaz, too young for the legend and old enough for the work, ties her hair back with a strip of sky and grins into the wind. Franklin checks the charts twice, then trusts his bones. Killian sharpens and jokes, the safest sound in a storm. Stanley counts barrels, blessings, and weighs back. Josefina listens to the water as if it still owes her an answer. Ahead, the horizon rucks up, Morgona's patience thinning to thread. Her magic travels before her like cold, turning swells to glass, turning men to their smallest selves. Finn squares the wheel and remembers a promise he intends to keep. Live, return, and bring the world's worst news gentler than it arrived. Back along the creek, another thread is tied tight and named clearly. Iliff's line is no rumour now. His father, Daniel Blackwood, his grandparents, Alex Chase and Astra, Steel and Starlight, bound by choice and blood. And behind them, the great-grandparents who began the gravity of it all, Lord Elias Blackwood and Evelyn, the first vow and the last mercy of that house. Iliff carries each rung of that ladder in his spine, Elias and Evelyn to Alex and Astra, to Daniel to him, not a chain, a bridge. Mia stitches the day shut and tells Magria a pirate's prayer disguised as a lullaby. On the open water, Finn's crew shapes their fear into a circle and holds. In the in-between, a compass buried seasons ago thrums once, twice, then steadies. The creek, the sea, the Blackwood line, the harbour child, the young sailor named Riaz, and the witch named for storms. Each thread runs taut toward the same loom. When it turns, they will call it Timebenders United. Tonight, they simply call it tomorrow and row toward it together.